Welcome to day 129 of the New Way. I'll read Matthew 15:29 through 31. Jesus left there and went along the Sea of Galilee. Then he went up on a mountainside and sat down. Great crowds came to him, bringing the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others, and laid them at his feet, and he healed them. The people were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the crippled made well, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and they praised the God of Israel. And Mark 7:31 through 37. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon, down to the Sea of Galilee, and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged Jesus to place his hand on him. After he took him aside, away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, "Ephphatha," which means, "be opened." At this the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosed, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. "He has done everything well," they said. "He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak." These verses show some of the amazing miracles that Jesus did. Can you imagine being there and watching this happen? He didn't just heal one thing, like blindness. He healed all kinds of sicknesses and made the people well. Mark seems to indicate that Jesus healed them one-on-one. I like to think that too. I believe he addressed everyone's needs personally, even though he could have just spoken a word and the whole group been healed instantly. As you picture yourself standing there in the crowd, realize how very little they knew about medicine at that time. Each healing represented a miraculous occurrence that changed the lives of the whole family. Don't lose that wonder. Even today, there are thousands of diseases and conditions that have no cure. Only God can heal them. I like to picture Jesus walking into a cancer hospital and emptying it. I like to picture him showing up at a convention filled with people with rare diseases that no one knows what to do with, and touching and healing each one. This really happened. He healed people of things that were not healable. Don't lose the awe. Now let's read Matthew 15:32 through 39. Jesus called his disciples to him and said, "I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry, or they may collapse on the way." His disciples answered, "Where could we get enough bread in this remote place to feed such a crowd?" "How many loaves do you have?" Jesus asked. 7, they replied, "and a few small fish." He told the crowd to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves and the fish, and when he had given thanks, He broke them and gave them to the disciples, and they, in turn, to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. Afterward, the disciples picked up 7 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was 4,000 men, besides women and children. After Jesus had sent the crowd away, he got into the boat and went to the vicinity of Magadan. And Mark 8, 1 through 10. During those days, another large crowd gathered. Since they had nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him and said, "I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will collapse on the way, because some of them have come a long distance." His disciples answered, "But where in this remote place can anyone get enough bread to feed them?" "How many loaves do you have?" Jesus asked. 7, they replied. He told the crowd to sit down on the ground. When he had taken the 7 loaves and given thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people, and they did so. They had a few small fish as well. He gave thanks for them also, and told the disciples to distribute them. The people ate and were satisfied. Afterward, the disciples picked up 7 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. About 4,000 were present. After he had sent them away, he got into the boat with his disciples and went to the region of Dalmanutha. We don't know how much time has passed since Jesus fed the 5,000 people, but we note that the disciples still seem to look for earthly solutions instead of relying on Jesus to provide for them. What was their first response when Jesus said the people needed to be fed? "There's not enough." That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Note that this time they had 7 loaves or rounds of bread and a few fish. Certainly not enough to feed 4,000 people, not counting the women and children. Did you notice how long the crowd had been listening to Jesus teach? And we complain if the sermon is 3 minutes longer than usual. Let me reread. Mark 8:2. "I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat." 7 baskets of food were left over. I wonder why this is a different number than last time. I wonder what Jesus did with it. I wonder, but I don't know the answers. We'll have to ask him in heaven. When you have a need, what is the first person, place, or thing that you think about to help with the solution? I think that God would be really pleased if we could honestly say that when a need came into our lives, we automatically took it to him first. I think that would please Jesus. He loves us so much. In his service, Dale.